Hello and welcome to another episode of Stanley Tucci. I'm Hannah.
And I'm a hard-boiled detective named David, and we're doing a sort of neo-noir turn for the Tooch. Um,
Yes.
he's done, the mob movies in almost every permutation except for the neo-noir, and now he's
Yeah.
added this to his belt with The Public Eye, 1993.
So I feel like this is a movie that just like no one our age has heard of. Like if you're a millennial, you don't know that this movie exists,
Yeah,
basically.
it's 1992. But yeah, I definitely a lost film, sort of similar to Quick Change, where I think there are people who were alive when it came out who know it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fitting because it is one of the same directors as Quick Change.
Oh,
Obviously not Bill Murray.
yes, not Bill Murray.
Yes,
Um,
but it was directed by Howard Franklin, who was also the writer and who wrote a lot of Bill Murray comedies in the 90s.
Interesting.
But he was
So a
trying to get
comedy
this script
writer.
made for like 10 years. So it was definitely a passion project for him.
It's a good script. Like, I don't know. Like, I really enjoyed this movie. And like I had never heard of it before. No one talks about this, but I want this podcast to be the beginning of the resurgence of this movie, spearheaded around the amazing performance that Stanley Tucci delivers.
I think it is kind of a hidden gem, but I do think that there are some elements of it that like just straight up don't work. And I think we'll get to those.
Sure.
Um, but I think like the fact that so much of it hinges on this Joe Pesci performance as Bernsey, Leon
Yeah.
Bernstein, otherwise known as the Great Bernzini, um, which is a really tough role to to portray. He's portraying a sort of reinterpretation of a real life New York photographer who was
Mhm.
known by the nickname Ouija, uh, not to be confused with Super Mario's brother. um, but yes, Ouija was a Ukrainian immigrant photographer who, at certain points, worked with Stanley Kubrick, and also, had several art exhibits and art books of his photography of the sort of underclasses of New York in the pre and post war period.
I mean, Joe Pesci does an incredible job here. This is a hard character to make likable. Like he poses dead bodies
Right.
and
For those of you
like
who have seen Nightcrawler
so yeah.
with Jake Gyllenhaal, or however you pronounce it, it's that movie was also loosely based on this photographer. The idea that he was more interested in the art of taking pictures for tabloid magazines than any other tabloid magazine photographer. But what that means is he's creating art out of tragedy.
Hmm.
And that could mean posing bodies or throwing hats where there aren't hats because people like to see the hats.
Yep.
It's not portraying reality as it is, but a heightened photographic reality, which is also, uh,
Movies.
yeah, it's a little bit sketch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really I also very much felt the similarities to Nightcrawler when I was watching this. And I think though while Nightcrawler sort of takes it on like this, the almost sociopathic like lens
Right.
of the kind of person who could succeed really well and considers this or takes it really seriously. um this is a much more uh emotional human role than the one that Jake Gyllenhaal portrays.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to go for, look, people say he's like the scum of the earth. What does that do to a person? That guy,
Hmm.
the scum of the earth guy, he's lonely at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Like one of the first scenes that he's in, he's approached by a sex worker who's
Hmm.
like, want to spend the night? And he's like, I can't, I'm married. And she's like, I can tell you're not married, and also that you haven't had a girlfriend in a long time, or maybe
Yeah.
ever. So they're sort of, trying to portray him as a loser, which is very much not the kind of roles that Pesci normally takes, where he's these heightened, kind of clownish gangsters. Well, not clownish. He would be offended if I said that, probably. What am I, a clown to you? But this is post Goodfellas. It's post
Yeah.
Home Alone, and
Yeah.
it's post My Cousin Vinny.
Mm-hmm.
And he took on this, almost like totally forgotten role. I just think that's interesting. And yeah, it's one of the things I love about doing this show, where we're just following Tucci's rise to power, where we just find these films that I would never watch otherwise. They would never
Yeah.
fall into my lap,
Yeah.
outside of this.
It's a honestly very fascinating tour through film history via the Tooch.
Right.
Um, so do we want to talk about the plot? Do we just want to talk about Tucci? How do we want
Well,
to
I
dive
think the
in?
plot is kind of thin. It's
Sure.
almost like
You could
not the
sketch it out.
point. Yeah, basically, like any neo-noir, it's very self-conscious of Joe Pesci goes and he meets this dame, and the dame cannot be trusted, but she's beautiful and she flatters him. And so he then, goes off to do just one simple task for the dame, but it spirals into, oh no, there's a dead body. Now we've got to solve the mystery of who killed them and why. And then we get involved with the mob, and the mob's involved with the cops, and the cops are involved with the army. And there's a scam involving selling stolen gas coupons, because it's World
Yeah.
War II and there's a war effort and people need coupons. But
Yep.
ultimately, there's one of the mob families double crosses the other. They shoot the hell out of him. But there's this lowly, he's not a private eye, he's a public eye.
He's a public eye, and he ends up in the public eye,
Right.
and
And he takes pictures of this
of
mob hit, this mob massacre taking place. And then he makes it on the front cover of the news. And so he doesn't go to jail.
but
And
he
he's
exposes that this mob was involved with the government,
right.
and
And
gets
he takes down those, Republicans, who are, scamming people by selling these stolen coupons.
yeah.
Yeah,
So he's a
but
hero,
he's the hero.
but
The
he
public good, the knowledge of the free press wins in the end. So
but he can't turn it off, David. He can't turn it off.
Right. In the very last scene, you see him in a car and there's a police scanner, and his friend from the newspaper, says, "How do I turn this thing off?" And he's like, "I can't turn it off." And he's like, "Ain't this the off switch right here?" And he's like, "I can't turn it off." And that's the last line of the movie.
It's because he can't turn off his photographer's eye. Everything's just waiting to be photographed.
Right. Yeah. The way they portray that in the film is like, whenever he's about to take a photo, everything goes slow-mo and in black and white. So it's like he can see the photos in his mind before they're even developed, man.
It's almost very like anime,
No, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of love it though.
Yeah. It's like the perfect moment to take the shot.
No.
But he also does like plenty of like fun antics, and I kind of wish that they
Yeah.
leaned into this more and made it more like silly and campy. That's my
I don't know.
aesthetic. It's not everyone's. But
I
like,
think-
I just want to point out to one scene where he dresses up as a priest to get into an ambulance, and he pretends to give the last rites to this.
But it's like nonsense
cadaver.
Latin, because he's
Right.
this Jewish
and
kid
it's
from
while
Russia.
he's doing the nonsense Latin, he's checking the light temperature values, and he's like 42, click, click, and then the guy who's watching him give last rites is like, "Hey, what are you trying to pull?" And then he gets thrown out of the back of an ambulance. And it's like, I think that's fun, it's cute, it doesn't ruin the emotional engagement for me.
Not at all.
I agree.
More of that. I another moment, and I think that's kind of similar is he gets picked up by the mob at one point. They're like, why'd you call the cops? But while he's getting picked up, the one guy like throws his camera down on the ground. Is like, get in the car. And he just keeps saying, get in the car. And he's like, all right, I'm in the car. Can I get my camera?
Can I get my
And
camera
he's
now?
like,
I'm in the car, all right? Can I get my camera?
and then just as that guy gets in the car, he jumps out, grabs the camera, and gets back in.
Yeah, no, I love that kind of slapsticky. I mean, I think that comes from like the aesthetic of the director being like, he does Bill Murray comedies, which are very deadpan often, but they're also very, slapsticky and physical comedy-ish. So
right,
I
it's
think
like
trying to blend that with like a dramatic noir aesthetic it's interesting for sure. I think it's worth checking out for that alone.
Yeah. And I think it works. There are very few moments where I was just like, no, that was jarring or like a weird cut.
I think it's the opposite. I think it's
that.
a little too muted, a little too dull. But I think for the most part, like it functions as a narrative. You follow it for the character.
Yeah.
I think like
it's compelling.
It's a film that is bound to create divisions. Like I don't think you would say that everyone would necessarily like this film.
Sure, but I think if more people now knew it existed and they watched
they would check it
out
and they would see it as a gem. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching like the old Siskel and Ebert review of it, back when they were doing At the Movies on TV.
Yeah, Roger Ebert gave it like 4 stars.
Well,
in a review.
He gave it thumbs up, and then he said like, I don't know that he said like, I don't know if everything about it works. I know that the plot, is very flimsy. It's like a flimsy noir plot, but I just accept that because that's just like the genre.
Right.
And then, Siskel was like very much like, I don't think we got enough of like why he cares so much about his art and his photography and like what his aesthetic is, because we there's a lot of respect given to him as a character but not to him as an artist. And I thought that was like kind of a lame read. Gene Siskel, come at me from beyond the grave.
It's interesting though. The like Rotten Tomatoes score on this though, it's like 65% for critics and 51% for like audience score.
Yeah, I feel like it would be divisive because I feel like a lot of people wouldn't get it. I feel like a lot of people would just be like, what, this is like not a very interesting noir plot. And like it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be just like a portrait of a really weird character. And I think a lot of people going in expecting like a big Joe Pesci performance are going to be like, that's not Joe, that's not Goodfellas.
That's not the Joe I love. See, this is, I love actors who normally play these like big over the top roles doing something a little bit more down to earth and serious. Like I love Will Ferrell in Stranger Than Fiction. That's probably my favorite Will Ferrell role.
Valid aesthetic preference.
Yeah.
I just think it's like, this is not going to be a movie for every single person. It's gonna,
for sure,
it's gonna put some people off. But I think, it's just a weird hidden gem of the 90s. There's not much else like it, like to compare it to.
No.
As far as like other neo-noirs. And I don't know. It's neat.
It's delightful for sure. Should we talk about the Tucci of it all?
I think we have to. Yeah, it's what the whole show is about. The Tucci is absolutely hotter in this movie than he has ever been before, and I'm including Monkey Shines in that.
Yeah.
He is just banging in this one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's ripped. Like he looks like he bulked up for this,
I mean, he's always been built, but like so few directors recognize him for his talent as a mostly shirtless actor. Because they see his hairline and they're like, that can't be sexy. And then he takes his shirt off. And then like, if you're watching the video podcast right now, you can see 2 glorious angles of him wearing just red suspenders and wife beater.
Those arms is all I'm gonna say. I'm not normally an arms person, but those arms.
I mean,
it's
undeniable.
I love Tucci in this role. So he plays sort of a
Sal.
mid-level gangster
Yeah.
for one of
Whose
the
name is,
two families.
Salvatore. Like,
Right.
if you're Sal, like, you're not the head of the crime family. You're probably somebody lower down on the rungs, but you're
Right.
gonna be a character, god damn it. You're
Yeah.
Salvatore. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why it's true, but it is.
But so it turns out that Tucci is playing the double agent and is selling
Yeah.
out his crime family to another crime family.
Yeah.
And Joe Pesci discovers this and confronts him about it in a great scene. And this is sort of the bulk of Tucci's appearance in the film, and most of his
Yeah.
screen time is in this scene. But it's great because, Stanley Tucci is not a tall man, but like the only person that he gets to be tall and intimidating to is definitely Joe Pesci, just like,
Yeah.
like you can kind of see.
He seems like a genuine threat to Joe
Right.
Pesci.
Right. And
Whereas,
especially with those like hunk up meat arms that he's got there. Like
right.
this guy.
Right. And like, I don't know. To me, like, I think I would compare Joe Pesci's performance to like your average Jack Lemmon performance. He's like such a down on his luck like guy. He's a schmuck. He's
Yeah.
nobody. He's described in parts as like Quasimodo, like that
Yes.
he's associating with this like beautiful woman, the Dame Kay Levitz.
That was a great line, by the way. It's like Quasimodo and sarsaparilla. You mean Esmeralda? It's like
Yeah.
so dumb, but I loved it.
Yeah, but it's like constantly made a big thing that like he's doing all this for this woman who's never gonna be with him, never gonna show him the time of day.
And that he's breaking all his rules, like he
Oh
doesn't get
yeah.
involved. And now
Right,
he's
that's his thing is
involved.
he knows everybody in the mob because he takes pictures of dead people, but he's never, called the cops on a mob hit or anything. And now he's like calling the cops who are then calling the feds because this thing
Yeah.
goes all the way to the top. And so
Yeah.
now the crime families are really like they're mad at him. And then basically because he has this heart to heart with Tucci and Tucci tells him like, oh, and he blackmails Tucci with a photo of him, breaking ranks and going to the other family.
I loved this scene. So basically, he shows Tucci the picture, and at first Tucci kind of throws him out. And then he's like, come in, let's talk about this. And then he just follows
in front of my mother.
Right. And then he Tucci is just like walking around the kitchen trying to sort of not deal with the fact that he's been found out, basically. And Joe Pesci is just following around and like throwing the pictures into drawers and throwing them onto cutting boards in front of him until finally, he just takes a picture and rips it in half and throws it away. It's all very like physical and embodied. Like you believe this performance from Tucci,
Yeah, I think it's there's definitely like a lot of craft in it in the way that he plays it very low key, very down to earth. It feels very like he's definitely channeling like, I don't know, Maltese Falcon, Big Chill,
Sure.
something of that era. I can't tell you exactly where his influences are. I would have to get him for an interview.
Tucci.
If anybody can
come
get
on.
him.
We'd love it. We stan you, Stanley.
But yeah, he's definitely channeling something. Whenever he's like smoking, it's very like, you can see his nervousness. He paces around the room very well. He controls the space.
He does a couple of like Tucci, chin rubs.
Yeah.
He's got a couple of those. I would say the accent for this, it's definitely still like a New York mobby Italian accent, but it's like
not his voice, but it's not as cartoony as he's been in any of his other roles.
I would 100% agree. This is sort of the most not realistic,
grounded.
But just like grounded. Yeah. Grounded
cinematic
mob. Yeah. Mob
it's
accent.
Even more than like Men of Respect, where I think he's doing a heightened thing because he's doing Shakespeare. And it's like, hey, look at me. And like Billy Bathgate, where he's doing like, I don't know, it's almost comedic, just like
Right.
that he comes in at the end and like kills everybody. And he's
He's
just
just
like,
there to
he's on
mug at
top of the
everyone.
world. He's mugging,
Right.
yeah. And in this one, no, he's like down in the dumps. He's like, I'm probably gonna die. I'm killing my entire family to go, like, for the possibility that I survive. I'm selling them out.
Yeah.
This sucks. At the very least I can do is be nice to this Burnsy guy who is blackmailing me. But he's a
Yeah.
genuinely pretty nice dude.
Yeah. And it's great because, Burnsy's trying to figure out if the woman who hired him, Kay, is, if she's known this whole time or not. Like, is she dirty? Is she clean? Trying to suss that out. And he basically like asked Tucci, but did the wife know? And Tucci's just like, how the fuck would I know? Why would I know that? Like, it's just like absolutely befuddled about like
Right.
why
I think
that's
it's a great
even
line
relevant.
read for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just right at the end being like, wow, but did she know? When did she know? And him just being like, that's not, you're just raising that for the audience. Like, that's not me, man.
Yeah. That's your own business. I don't know anything about the wife.
Yeah.
And so he becomes the key plot point though, because Burnsy wants to take photos of the massacre that's happening.
Right.
And he wants to do it both for professional interest, but also to protect Kay.
Right.
And
The
to sort
people who
of
are threatening her
resolve.
are this crime family, and
Yeah.
they want her because her dead husband was the person who was the source stealing these coupons in the first place. And so
Sort of,
he's the
yeah.
only person who can trace it back to the government and their
Mm-hmm.
mob ties, which
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look good for anybody. So she's a loose end. So
Yeah.
she's being threatened. He's a loose end. Tucci is a loose end. And so you have this like absolutely like heartbreaking scene where he's just called his his capo to be like, hey, where are we meeting for the Italian dinner at the Italian
Or they
restaurant?
they call him and they have a guy posted there.
Right. And then
Yeah.
one of the crime family he's betraying them for is right behind him. And he's like, you feel bad? And he's like, what do you mean? Of course I feel bad. I feel terrible. And then he's got a gun and just blasts him. It won't feel
He's
bad
like,
anymore.
no, he's like, you'll get over it.
You'll get over it. Right. It's a classic, mob hit scene, but
Right. But
he
now
plays
Burnsy
like,
doesn't know where the hit's gonna be because Tucci was supposed to tell him. Oh no.
right. But he's clever, right? Like that's his whole thing, is that he knows like almost supernaturally how to be at a crime scene when it happens.
He's got
Here
a
we see his
nose for
process.
news.
He's got a nose for news. So he calls every Italian restaurant to make a reservation. The one that says they're having a private party, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes there. And strangely enough, I don't know the name of this actor, but there is a guy in there who is essentially Black Tucci. He looks almost he's wearing a wife beater with red suspenders. He has muscular arms. He has a receding hairline. The only two differences between Tucci and this guy is that this guy is black and he has a mustache. Only differences.
Like no speaking lines.
No, yeah. He's not as big of a character, but I just thought it like threw me for a second because it was a darkly lit scene, and I was like, wait, I thought Tucci was dead. Now he's in this restaurant. Wait, no, that guy is a black man. That's not Tucci.
So funny that you had that thought. I do think they recycled the wife beater and suspenders though.
It was a big aesthetic in the 40s, but
that's
like
true.
It's just funny to me.
Exactly the same though. Yeah, so turns out in the end that
they do the massacre, but Pesci gets the shots. He gets the shots. He gets them to the newspaper. He gets shot. He gets questioned by the police who are trying to get him to like, tell me where you put the photos so we can burn them and destroy them and cover up all the evidence. And then he's like, oops, too late. It's already in the late edition of the newspaper.
Got he. And then he's a hero.
He's a hero. And then he says, I don't like to have my picture taken.
Yeah. Even though earlier in the movie he says, everybody likes to get their picture took.
Right. Or just he also says everybody eventually gets their picture taken either when they're alive or after. And let me tell you, nobody looks better after. A lot of really interesting lines and sort of arguments he does in order to get people to do what he wants.
I mean, I think that's part of the beauty of the character that makes him so watchable and kind of likable, is that he does have this strange charm.
Right.
And he's got
And
like
that he's like
this
nobody.
sense of
He's this
right.
shutterbug.
He's got
A fly on the wall.
charisma. He's got charisma. He knows how to talk to people to get what he wants, which is usually just a photograph. When, you know, it's just exciting to watch him succeed. He's such an underdog that it's
No, he
always
really
fun.
is. Yeah. Yeah. It's the whole movie hinges on the performance. You either like it or you don't.
We
But
clearly loved it.
yeah. And I really liked Tucci in this role, and not just
Yeah.
because he has his shirt off, but which he does in a lot of these so far. But he definitely looks his best in this lighting, or something about it works for him.
Yeah. It's interesting. Tucci is credited pretty high up on this one. You know, not like first or second credit, but he's
It's
like
order
the
of
first.
appearance.
Oh, is it? But he's
Yeah,
the
and
first one after the title, which to me is always like, ooh.
is he? Oh, in the
Yeah,
opening credits.
in
I
the
was
opening
looking. I was thinking of
credits.
the closing.
No.
Credits.
I'm talking about the opening credits.
Yeah, he must be pretty up there. I mean, he definitely was cast on purpose by the director who knew him from Quick Change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think any of the other actors had worked with him significantly before. The only there were some other interesting connections as far as like the cast that we didn't mention. I just want to say there was a brief blink and you miss it cameo by Richard Schiff, who you might know from The West Wing, where
Yeah.
he plays Toby.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a slower photographer. That's just his role. He comes into a building and he's like, Joe Pesci beat me. He doesn't say a line and then he just leaves. That's
Yeah.
crazy. And then
There's
as far
Jared Harris as well, who plays Danny, who's like this is basically the Irish doorman of
right,
the
who
club
knows all
that
the
Kay runs.
people.
Right, who's sort of an asshole and doesn't like
Right.
Burnsy, and ends up he's an informant for the mob. Of course. But he's played by, I know him as the British guy from Mad Men, who comes in and like buys out the that. He's also in Chernobyl. He was, I think, like the main scientist in that. He's in a bunch of stuff. But he is like a bit role as like he's doing a very weird Irish accent. Like I feel like he was clearly cast because like you're British, you can do an Irish accent. He's like, sure.
Or are we sure he doesn't just do British accents and everything you've seen him in?
I'm pretty sure he is British. I'm almost 100% sure.
All right. Is he your whomst we also for this week?
I don't know. I mean, like Barbara Hershey, like who I just recognized on sight, but like she's not like famous.
No, but you know, she was in
Black Swan. She
right.
was the mother in that. She's played the mom in a lot of things, I think.
She's also worked with Scorsese, same with Pesci. I forget which movie she was in.
Oh, she was in Hannah and Her Sisters as well. Yeah, I don't know. Like she's just done a lot. And she does a great job here. I think her performance as Kay is
right. But
really
no
well
one
done.
in the film has done more than Richard Riley, who was actually in another. He has worked with Tucci before, as the brother or maybe husband of Kathy Bates in Prelude to a Kiss.
That's who he was in that. Okay.
And he plays a cop named Officer O'Brien, who has the great line, which is Pesci says, you know, they like to see, they like to see a dead guy, with his hat. And he says, well, they want to see a dead guy's dick. Maybe I should take his pants off. So that's a great line by Richard Riley,
Yeah.
talking about taking a cadaver's pants off for the cameras.
I swear to God, you do not know this man by name, but you for sure know him by face. Like he has just been in like everything. He has had a bit part on whatever your favorite show is, almost
he
guaranteed.
had 13 credits in 1995. Like he's
right.
a very prolific character actor. I believe he did the voice of Boomy in The Legend of Korra.
Yes, he did that. You know, he's in he's got a bunch of stuff coming out in 2021, stuff that's in pre-production, post-production. Like he's just is still working, you know?
Yeah.
He was born in 1948. Like this man does not rest. He is a working actor.
Yeah. So yeah, big props to him. But I think that my whom we also has got to be Joe. Joe Pesci is
gotta be Joe.
Whether this is, I don't think I'd call this his best role, but I think it is a memorable role, and he is just an incredibly memorable actor. He's done so few roles recently. He's basically left the profession more or less. And I know I've heard stories of him being like kind of rude to people who send him like scripts or something, but you know, that's his prerogative because he's done his duty to cinema and he got out, and I think that's fine.
Yeah. But he was so great in this, and it was a pleasure. Is there any Tucci news, David?
Yeah, the long-awaited return of Tucci news. He's been a little quiet recently in the news. Still nothing happening with him in his life, but finally we have more Stans writing sort of think pieces or write-ups on his Searching for Italy TV show. So this one comes from The Guardian. Hello, this is the big time, The Guardian.
Thank you to Stuart Heritage.
Yes.
Fascinating
we're
name.
Going to probably tweet at Stu Heritage to see if we can get you on the show, because you are a stan in all of the right ways. So
we can tell.
Let's read this article. We'll trade off. I'm just gonna read the headline and the subhead, and then you can start with the first paragraph.
Sounds great.
So the headline is Stanley Tucci, the flirty hero of foodie TV you need in your life.
Love it already.
The actor charms the pants off everyone he meets in this new culinary travelogue that will whet your appetite for a trip abroad when it's finally allowed.
Oh, yes. Tell me more, Stuart. So you may not realize this at the moment, but your heart has been crying out for a series like Stanley Tucci Searching for Italy. If you saw last night's first episode tucked away on CNN International, you will already be aware of this. Thank you, Stuart. Like, I'm feeling the vibes. If you didn't stop what you're doing and seek it out, it's less a TV show and more an hour of full body relaxation. By the time the episode ended, I felt as if my entire brain had been taken out and massaged in olive oil.
Yeah.
Mr. Heritage.
Which could be an insult if you were talking about somebody who is inherently oily or greasy, but this is the Tooch. So we know that when he says my brain is doused in olive oil, he doesn't mean that he's grossed out, but that he is.
No, but it's massaged in olive oil, you know, it's marinating in there. Yeah.
I also just see a caption under the photo of Tooch for the article. It says the signature hypnodazzle. Maybe he is a little hypnotic. Maybe we should be wary of his wiles.
Who's the Tooch?
Yes. Maybe we should be fearful of the power of the Tooch.
Oh my gosh.
Tucci visits a different Italian region in every episode and contentedly samples its food. It is a formula you will have seen thousands of times before, albeit with a couple of key differences. The first is timing. Searching for Italy was filmed last summer in that near mythical lull when COVID eased off and people were briefly allowed out of their houses again. As such, the whole series is perpetually dazzled by the possibility of travel. Every restaurant, every mountain, every cobbled street is captured with a sense of awestruck wonder, as if it were a newly rediscovered treasure. That it's being broadcast now when we're still not allowed to go abroad, only exacerbates this sensation. If you've missed European travel even slightly over these last 15 months, you're going to feel this show in your bones.
So, I mean, I love that this assumes that, we've been traveling to Europe.
Right. That's not what travelogues are necessarily for. They're for
Right.
anybody who wants to feel as if they've experienced Italy
Right.
or want to daydream about Italy, which is what Tucci
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. But, Mr. Heritage goes on to say the second difference about this show is its host. Shows like this tend to have a limited range. There are only so many times you can look at a tomato farm or visit a lemon grove. As such, they heavily rely on the personality of whoever is in front of the camera. Anthony Bourdain's shows were ragged with the spirit of adventure, for instance, while Phil Rosenthal's are like watching a sugar-crazed toddler go wild in a supermarket. But Searching for Italy has Stanley Tucci, for crying out loud, a man who cannot help but radiate elegant calm from his pores.
For crying out loud.
This you are clearly a stan, dude.
Again,
like,
this
Stu,
could be an insult if he was a
us.
really sweaty person talking
Oh
about his
my
pores
gosh.
so much. But we know because it's Tucci that this is all meant in a complimentary fashion.
Yeah, Tucci, by all accounts, has had a smashing pandemic. I don't think anyone's had a smashing pandemic, but okay. Early on, he became a breakout viral star thanks to the videos of him making cocktails in his kitchen. There is something about his unflappable presentation, teasing yet authoritative. Tell me more, Stu, that not only cut through the chaos of those initial months, but inspired wave after wave of ferocious lust in just about everyone who watched it. I mean, agreed, but I
the
can only
thirst
hope
in this article is real.
It's real. And then, if that wasn't enough, last May he wrote an hour-by-hour breakdown of lockdown life for The Atlantic that acted as perhaps the first convincing summary of family life in lockdown. Had Stanley Tucci
I believe we read that for a Tucci news, but it's possible that we didn't.
If we missed it, maybe we'll bring it back for next week.
It was an interview that they did, if I'm recalling correctly.
Had Stanley Tucci Searching for Italy been made before lockdown, if it had been the bloke with the wig from the Hunger Games eating risotto on a bench, it would have been fine. But this is the new and improved sexy post-viral Tucci. As such, his show is unmissable. So, Stu, I am going to have to stop you there and say that look at these arms. There is no
virality. I mean, he was always daddy. He was always
he's so daddy. The internet invented that term to talk about Tucci and his class and his vibe. He's very
I mean, are you saying
sexy.
because he wasn't a lead actor and so he needed virality to propel him to fame? I disagree. I think we were all just waiting for an excuse to make him viral,
and to bring back the thirst, because honestly, him in the Hunger Games is not my favorite Tucci performance. We'll get there when we get there, but it's not my favorite performance. He's been in so many other goddamn things though. That's why we're making this show.
Yeah, it's all gold. Not all gold movies, but all gold performances.
Yeah. Do you want to take us home, David?
In Searching for Italy, Tucci basically makes it his business to charm the pants off every Italian he meets. Sort of going back to the subhead. In Italian. So this is the authenticity that he brings. Anyway, episode 1 takes place in Naples, and early on he visits a tiny century-old hole-in-the-wall pizzeria. He takes a bit of his calzone and then gazes at the middle-aged woman who made it for him. Fernanda, he purrs, you've changed my life. You'll get fat, she barks back flirtatiously, fully ready to leave her family for this stylish new stranger.
And aren't we all, Stu? Aren't we all?
Tucci does this to everyone. Chefs, farmers, old friends, they all fall under the powerful Tucci hypnodazzle. There it is. The purring is constant too. At one point, a violent hailstorm hits and the camera crew rush inside to save their equipment. At this point, Tucci became the only person I've ever heard to purr the phrase, Holy shit.
Holy shit.
So yeah, I
Holy
think this is
shit.
pointing to something that I haven't seen identified in all the other write-ups that we've seen on Searching for Italy. So it's his sensuality, which I think has been commented on a little bit, but his sensual use of language, which I think
Yes.
is great.
And
This is the
just
sort of
that
show he was
he's
made to
sexy.
host. Tucci knows food and he knows Italy, and he carries himself with such assurance that you sort of want to give up acting. You sort of want him to give up acting and dedicate himself to this full time. There's already a sense that he could be the next Bourdain, so he'll probably be allowed to make as many shows like this as he wants. Hell yes. Whether that happens or not is another matter. My feeling is that this works so well because Tucci is completely aligned with Italy, and a sequel called something like Stanley Tucci Searching for Belgium would lose its charm.
I
You may
agree.
be right, yet he has played a Frenchman
That's
so
true.
far,
I think he
and
could do France. I think he could
he's
pull
done
off
a
France.
German scientist and a German Nazi. um, so he has the ability to portray with some authenticity other roles besides Italians. We just haven't really gotten to any of them yet. But let's not get ahead of
Alrighty.
ourselves. Stanley Tucci Searching for Italy is what we got, and we'd be silly not to savor every morsel. Thank you, Stu. We
Yeah.
are stands of you, and we are glad that you are stands of Stan Tucci. So thank you
Yes.
for your
Thank you.
contribution.
So that's it for the public eye. Our next Tucci adventure will be in is it Undercover Blues, David?
Yeah, let's do Undercover Blues next. Why not?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
get
It's
we're
next
heading
on the
into
list.
1993 finally. 1992 was a
Whew,
big year for the Tooch. It was 5 movies.
it's a
Uh,
lot.
we did skip one where he's uncredited, but it's kind of lost media to us.
Yeah.
We can't find it. The Gun in Betty Lou's Handbag. So as we're leaving 1992, we may one day return once we do our special on lost media.
I'm so
Stuff
glad
we
that the
couldn't find.
year of my birth, was such a momentous year for Tucci as well.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, he's only going to have more credits, or at
Right.
least as many credits in my birth year,
Oh,
1995.
oh
But
yeah.
we'll get there when we get there.
All right. We'll see you next week, Tucci heads. Bye.